Thank you everyone for being here, although you don't have coffee yet. So I'm Carine Roos. I'm a doctoral researcher at the University of Sheffield. So I would like to present today the backstage of our Brazil Digital Child Statute that was approved in September 2025. So I'd like to start with this question: what if the most effective form of participation in AI governance is not collaboration but resistance? And this is interesting because I'm from Brazil. Brazil has very interesting digital civil rights movement. So, for instance, in 2014, Brazil approved our landmark of Internet Bill of Rights, which was like a pioneer and global reference. But in this case, for this law, take like a different path, we could say, because this law was under construction since like 1.5 years until 2023 and 2025. But we had like a video, like in Brazil we have big influencers, and one of them was Felca, and Felca made a video. The name of the video is Adultization, and because of this video that goes viral, achieved like 44 million views of people in Brazil. So Brazil has over 200 million people. This approval of the law goes very fast, so like in few weeks. And the interesting point here is the civil society movements shape the regulation and until we have this approval. And despite we have like a huge, extensive lobby, 74 lobbyists that are like now is mapped from investigative journalists in Brazil from 16 platforms. So I'd like to start from key facts. So this law bans profiling of minors, mandates transparency reports from platforms, prohibits anti-addictive design, and the coalition that was formed in order to shape this regulation in the National Congress are many. So Instituto Alana, Data Privacy Brasil, IDEC, Family Talks, Coalizão de Direitos nas Redes, Intervozes, and many others, and has no formal hierarchy. And you have like Instituto Alana, which is like the we can say like the bigger institution, has like 2-3 people from Instituto Alana daily in the Congress when we have these few weeks of approval. As I told you, we have like over 70 lobbyists. For instance, Meta, we have 19 representatives were there, Google 13 representatives. We also have Conselho Digital. So Conselho Digital is like a big tech group that influence our National Congress, our legislators, in trying to pass the view of the platforms, because this like is Amazon, Meta, Google, Discord, TikTok, and many others. So the interesting point is the result. We have like a left-right convergence. So we have from one side Damares Alves is our senator, far-right senator in Brazil. So in the other side we have like Maria do Rosário. Maria do Rosário is our left party, and they co-sponsored this bill in the end. And this diverged from platform proposal, but have like a concession. So the concession is the authority was divided. So we have our national authority protection data in Brazil. So this authority like provides the penalties, and our judiciary services suspension. So the methodology, this is an ongoing qualitative research because, yeah, so the approval of the law was in September. I did like many data resources. I gathered documentary analysis, deep dive into legislation, technical notes, legislative proceedings, semi-structured interviews with civil society, policy monitoring, and also gathering secondary data from investigative journalists in Brazil as well. So the analysis was source triangulation, and the theoretical framework that I will show to you is counter-governance as analytical lens. So I bring scholars Mouffe, Rosa Vallon, Dan, Atad Frost, and I would like to flag like a limitation because this research is ongoing. So the current phase reflects the perspectives from civil society, but idea is to expand these interviews also with legislators, industry actors, and also government. So this is the conceptual ladder. So I will start in the level 1, so Mouffe. So Mouffe has a book called The Paradox of Democracy, and Mouffe said, like, we need to move from antagonism to agonism. And the interesting point, this coalition that were formed and influenced this law, shift the frame, the debate from censorship versus freedom to child protection. So the second wave, I could say, Rosa Vallon, the counterpower. So Rosa Vallon said, like, citizens exercise power not only voting, but also monitoring, contesting, and saying no. And we have this coalition drafting amendments, briefed legislators, and directly contributed to drafting sanctions of this law. And the another level is counter-governance as democratic practice. So Dean get the concept of Mouffe and Rosa Vallon, counterpower, and create the concept of counter-governance. So said citizens act as veto holders, watchdogs, and judges through institutional contestation. And the last level is AI counter-governance. So Atad Frost bring the concept of counter-governance through AI. So what is my thesis, my framework here? So antagonism leads to oversight, then comes to obstruction, then goes to institutionalized contestations, and can provide new legal architecture. So what I found gathering all these materials, so like 5 counter-governance strategies. So the first one is study before acting. So before the political window open, this coalition built expertise by grounding its proposal in UN General Comment number 25, which is related to children's rights, children's rights, training also parliamentary advisors, also rename the debate. So shift this discussion, as I said, censorship versus freedom to child protection. So when they reframe this to child protection, enable cross-party alignment without eliminate the disagreement. Also, all these movements also monitor continuously the Congress, ongoing scrutiny of regulations and platforms, so producing counter arguments and responses. So I mapped 14 document counter governments that this coalition did. Whenever you have like the big techs trying to impose their ideas through the legislators, we already have like counter arguments in behind the scene in trying to move. know when to say no. So this is very interesting. So the coalition support removing urgency when we had this 1 year. So I told you 2023 until 2025. So the coalition support removing urgency status during the legislative negotiation, because the law, if that was approved in that moment, the law was being weakened. And also channel democratic passions. So because of this video of Felka that provides this collective indignation translating to legislative pressure rather than moral panic. Yeah. So, as I told you, we have this huge power asymmetry with lobbyists and also this coalition. On the voting date, we will have like Meta and Google lobbyists in corridors approaching the deputies. Also, they spread like a hashtag framing the bill as censorship. And also, Felka was under threat after the video that went viral. So my idea here is to show that participation, how we can think about participation as institutional reconfiguration. In other words, participation is not limited to inclusion within existing structures, but also to collective power to reshape them. So this is the idea. It's not like having the same seat that with, like in a multi-stakeholder process could be, or having a consultation, but how we can create political conditions to actually create, to challenge who controls these seats. And now we are in the phase of implementation, and we have like many things happening, because now in the Brazil we have our elections and could be potential legislative backlash. So we also have INPD remains structurally limited in staffing and resources. Also public attention after the video gone viral. Public attention has already declined, so we already have many issues to implement this law. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Bhawna. I've been asked to finish this in 8 minutes. I'll try my best. I am from this organization called Quest Alliance. We work with young people in more than 11 states in India, in government schools and vocational training institutes. Before I begin, I wanted to just note the fact that we were talking about AI literacy since morning, and I think it came out in many presentations. I also wanted to ask, you might have visited the India AI Summit. Where did you see young people representation? And if you did see, what kind of backgrounds do you think they were coming from when it comes to this summit? If anyone can answer in 20 seconds.
Also engineering students in the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear any critical youth voices in the summit? No. Right. So we started this research project in 2024. This is the labor of 1 year. We spoke to more than 200 young people in 9 research sites in the states of Delhi, Haryana, Kerala, Gujarat, and Odisha. And before I begin, I think when we speak about AI literacy, the Indian government is also trying to push AI to young people as young as 3rd graders now. But before we talk about AI literacy, I think the main question we have to ask is, what is the starting point? And if you scan this QR code, you'll see how young people are navigating digital platforms. This is an interactive microsite that we've built where every character is, you can click on it and see their story and their navigation of digital platforms. I'll quickly move now. So what we also saw when how young people are using digital platforms is that their navigation is very complex, messy, honest, and unguided, because they have not been told what these platforms mean. And a lot of adults in their lives are completely dismissing their use of these platforms. But that doesn't mean that young people don't have access. They do, even if there is restricted access, even if they're using their parents' phones. They are making folk theories, stories about how these platforms are functioning, and they're navigating using their agency. Maybe it's restricted, but they are navigating these platforms on their own. A little bit, I'll also add that what we've seen is young people are now using YouTube. More than 70% young people are now using YouTube to gain information and knowledge, and they're actually questioning their classroom, saying that is giving us partial truth, but YouTube is giving us actual truth. There's a lot of just like I said, the folk theories that they're building is that, oh, maybe there's someone sitting behind YouTube screen, an employee who is tasked to send videos to their assigned districts, and that is why in one district we're all getting the same videos. Or some are saying that it's my phone that knows me, YouTube does not know me. Or maybe some are saying that App Store knows me. So they're building and making connections like this, but this is not a failure of their understanding, this is the failure of the education system. Oh my God, 5 minutes already. Okay, I'll quickly move. 2 out of 3 young people in the survey that we conducted with 2,500 young people in India said that 2 out of 3 young people did not know what AI was. 53% of students were said that Gen AI chatbots are all-knowing entities, a parent or a teacher. 51% students thought they always give correct answers. And even so, they were still using a lot of Gen AI platforms with different kinds of uses. Just one that I would like to highlight is a lot of girls in rural areas were using Gen AI chatbots as an emotional confidant. They were not aware of where or how their data is being used or where it's going, but what they really liked is that it was giving them long responses, and it felt like it was listening to them when the adults or their friends around their vicinity were not. And what we realized that even when young people's lives are immersed in these AI systems, they are largely unaware of how they're functioning. And it's very important to actually first make young people aware of what AI is and how it functions critically, and then include their voices in how these AI systems are built, because they are the ones who are going to inherit the AI futures which we decide on today. And why youth participation does not happen in India, what we have found, especially working with the skill ministry and the education ministry, is that they feel that young people do not know the technicalities of AI. That's where we shouldn't be listening to them, A. And B, they feel that young people anyway are, they don't know what they're talking about, they're flaky, etc., so they don't want to listen to them. And even when young people's participation is included, it's more about user interface rather than questioning, challenging the AI systems altogether. I'll move. Sorry, there is no time. My fellow panelists also spoke about Ruha Benjamin. So one thing that I wanted to just focus on is that we built a critical AI futures pedagogical framework to get young people to move from dominant narratives of AI to think about alternates and to critically engage with it, to not just create new AI systems, but also challenge, contest, and refuse them. And Ruha Benjamin also talks about how our education system is supposed to build the muscle of imagination, but currently it's actually doing the opposite. So what does it mean for an AI literacy framework to actually do this rather than just creating a ready workforce or a labor force which is going to go into AI systems in the future? So what we did in this pedagogical framework was, first, that's a 3-step framework that we built. First was to get young people to critically understand AI. The second was called discomfort as a site of transformation. And the third is exploring desired futures. I'll go into each step in detail. All my notes are off. I'm just talking from my memory now. Anyway. So the first step where we made young people critically understand AI, the idea was to demystify technology, because a lot of young people looked at Gen AI as magic. So we started with having them engage with Quick Draw or ChatGPT, but from a critical lens, to have them also understand how hallucinations work. And when young people from let's say, a language that is not included in ChatGPT. When they were using that language to speak to ChatGPT, ChatGPT was not able to respond in the same language, and that made them realize that, oh, the people who made this may not even know that our language exists. Or when they asked ChatGPT to tell if a number is a prime number or not, ChatGPT did something called snowball hallucinations, where it was giving wrong answers, and when they realized that, they started laughing and said, no, it does not know everything. So from saying that, oh, it can always give right answers, to then questioning and laughing at it, was a shift. Second, what we did was we also wanted to tell them, open the hood and make them understand how data correlation works. So we gave them a fictional scenario of building an AI chatbot using their own data, which you see on that chart paper there. So they were asked to put in their yes or no data and then find correlations within it to say this is how a rudimentary AI system may work. And that made them realize how correlation or data correlation may not make sense, even though it's making sense in the data. In the second step, which is discomfort as a site of transformation, what we did was we used something called theater of the oppressed exercises, where we gave young people, I'm trying my best, where we gave young people certain scenarios which started from the present and then moved to the future. And the last future scenario, which was a high stakes scenario, for example, was this year, the year is 2035, within the same company, human managers are being replaced by AI managers called Monitor AI to improve the efficiency and productivity of the workforce. And then young people were given characters of, let's say, the employer, the employee, a lawyer, and the government official. And they were supposed to think about what are the intended and unintended consequences of such a world, and how can things go wrong, and if an employer is shortchanged, why did that happen? So they had to unpack the problem and then think about the solutions to ensure such a problem should not happen. How young people responded to this exercise was, we've coded it in 4 ways. The first was accepting the status quo. A lot of young people also, not a lot, but some young people were also saying that, no, we cannot let go of AI. If the government has thought about it, there must be something that they must be thinking. So that narrative was there. But a lot of other young people were also talking about abolishing this system, saying if it does not work properly, we don't need it. They also were thinking about reforming, and they also were thinking about creating alternate systems. It also gave them a space to navigate to talk about, articulate their anxieties and hopes about navigating emerging technologies. They also spoke about accountable, now I'll just read through, sorry. They also were talking about how these AI systems will build accountability, how they should have data transparency. A lot of the conversations that they actually started talking about the state and corporate nexus, and spoke about how if the tech systems are being built for our good, why can't we or communities themselves build it? Why do we need an organization sitting in the US to build and do good for us? These were the things they were saying. And they also spoke about, they brought in their lived experiences, where they said, okay, in the last 20 years, my community was looked at as criminals. So if that data is going to be put in these systems, am I going to be labeled as a criminal even now? They also then created certain future worlds that they would want instead. So one of the things that young people said that we would like to, they recognize that there's a communication gap between government and young people. So they imagined building a platform which helps by themselves, which helps them reduce that communication gap. And there were a lot of things that they embedded in this system of ownership, transparency, etc. After this research project that was done for 8 months, we invited a lot of young people from different states to our office, because they articulated that they wanted to create a youth AI manifesto which puts their voices into the AI narrative. So some 35 young people had come to our office, and this was created by young people themselves. So they were the authors of this manifesto, which you can download here. And we're trying to have more decision makers engage with this manifesto. We have started doing this with the Minister of Skill Development, but it's a long road ahead. As I said, the adults, especially in India, are not that accepting of youth voices. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
My name is Liz Orembo from Research ICT Africa, and I'm here with my colleague, Kola Ijison, who are supposed to present together, but we only have 8 minutes. So this research is about democratizing AI resources in Africa, and we are looking at the case of community data and capability. Can you hear me, just to confirm? I speak into the mic. Can you mic test 1, 2? Okay, thank you. So this project started as a gauge research where we were trying to test whether researchers in Africa really demand for platform access data. And it happened during the time of the DSA development, which actually it actually required that large platform companies release their data to researchers for them to research different phenomena in the society. So we realized that a lot of this data, there was a lot of partnership already existing even before the DSA, and even afterwards, those partnerships increased between global North organizations and institutions. So for example, Meta would have partnerships with universities in the US and universities in Europe, but these partnerships did not exist for Africa. And so we started this research interviewing experts in Africa and researchers in Africa because you are like, why does this gap exist? And is it because there's a low demand, or there's no demand for this data in the African continent? So when we started doing these interviews, one thing struck us. So it didn't strike us because we are researchers and we want this data to do our own research. But the other thing that was very, very interesting was that data stakeholders in Africa and experts also asked us, as you go look for data outside, there's so much data that's being generated in the continent that is not being used. And that also formed now this other angle of research and what we're doing now. It is projecting. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah, so then we started looking at this access to data angle, what it means by empowering communities when stakeholders, or not just stakeholders, but even up to community level, when they access data, what does it really mean? And this, we are looking at democratizing AI resources and data as an AI resource. Usually when you hear in the policy corridors, when people talk about AI democratization, they mean access to AI tools, commercial infrastructure, and data as commodity as a commodity or a protected object. But often they usually miss the capabilities of communities actually to use this data, and even do they actually use it? I'm trying to rush here because it's Kito says 5 minutes. So the other thing that you usually get as a question is that now if you give communities data, how are they going to use it? Is there even demand? Like the first question to the research that I was highlighting. But when you look at African communities and how we self-organize, there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of use cases. And there's a lot of applications where how this data can be used at a community level. So instead of looking at data flows from a horizontal level, cross-border data flows at a commercial point of it, how about you look at the social point of it? And these are some of the examples here. So first of all, we have Chama groups. Chama groups, we call them as table banking or cooperatives, where mostly women groups come together for financial purposes, like do collective saving, collective investment, and borrowing, and it gives a lot of data to the bank on how women groups are doing in terms of business, in terms of the problems they encounter, things about what would make them not to repay loans and things like that. Another example, I'll not explain all these four, but I'll delve into welfare groups. And welfare groups in most African societies, people migrate from, let's say, from villages to city centers, sometimes migrate from one country to another, but they still want to build back in their communities. And schools they'll develop schools, build schools collectively, healthcare facilities collectively, like just filling in the gaps that where government has failed to solve policy problems. And this requires a lot of data. So moving on swiftly, this was an example that I was going to give on how this contrasts by how institutions view data, even governments view data. They view it as a commodity. And when you look at this case example, Kenya being one of the countries that signed out health data to the US government, and 5 more also were part of that deal to get back the USA data that was lost. Not data, funding that was lost, but Africa would give data. So that means that government sees data as a commodity or as something to exchange, as a token for exchange for funds for development. And that conceptualization of data is what we are trying to challenge here, using data justice and AI justice as frameworks for this research. And in this, we are also looking at, I'd also like to mention Lynette Taylor's work, where she also says that part of the exploitation here is that communities are not using data, but the exploitation here is that they are being surveilled upon, double surveilled upon, especially for marginalized community, where one person who is marginalized is being surveilled either for protection or the other side for the type of marginalization they have. So for example, cases of immigration, cases of, I can't remember another case because I'm being hurried, but immigration would be a very, very perfect case here. So how are we missing the point? And I'd like to point a few policies that we have in Africa, very important policies. So this research is not to object that these policies exist, but that we still have that that little framing or maybe limited framing of data as a commodity and data as something that should be protected, which is good again. But then we don't see how this data can actually empower communities. When you see ACFTA, the Africa Free Trade AU frameworks, it's about data flows. We have 44 countries, African countries with data protection, access to information laws, but this access to information laws have not really been reconceptualized for identified society, like looking at data as information for public good and that which would actually benefit societies. So this is a community data capability framework, access, how do we empower people, access, usage, legitimization of data flows. What needs to happen, and this is the last few slides. My time is up. Recommendations, adding community data capability as a third pillar of AU policy framework, extended access to information legislation, which I said countries need to look at access to data as information as for public good, and then also platform accountability, giving back data from where they get it from. And these are the questions that I'm actually having for the research. How can we democratize AI on a foundation where communities generate data but cannot use it? Of course, the answer is no, but it's no, but another question is whether African governance framework and the global AI sector they engage have the political will to to build a different foundation. And how can we do that? Of course, what frameworks of advocacy can we use to change this narrative that data is a product and communities don't have power to or even knowledge to use that data that they have? Thank you.